it's me, Alex. Today, I'm back. I'm excited because my computer just got back this morning, so I'm like, yes, I can use Premiere Pro again. I'm doing an excitement. Today, I'm doing another duping the vibes type video. This one is going to be on the Pat McGrath Mothership VIII? I don't know, she does a lot of motherships. Divine Rose 2 palette. Now, I've never been particularly interested in Pat McGrath's products. Like, I think the quality must be, like, absolutely amazing, but there isn't any product that I was like, okay, I feel wholeheartedly excited about this to the point where I would spend $120 on an eyeshadow palette. And I'm also not entirely sure if Pat McGrath is cruelty-free. I always get, like, a whole bunch of different, like, there's a few different verdicts on that on the internets. So I'm like not entirely there on buying from her yet. I think that she's an incredibly talented makeup artist. A lot of the beauty YouTubers who I really like and trust their opinions on, like Robert Welsh, Jackie Aina, and a whole bunch of other folks, like everyone seems to really like her products, so I have no doubt that this palette is really good. It's just that it's $120 and I have student loans that I'm going to have to start paying back soon. In order for me to maintain my financial stability and feeling good about all that, I've decided that I'm going to dupe the vibes of this palette. Now, I'm not exactly sure if I will be able to dupe all of the shades exactly. I have a whole bunch of palettes sitting right here that I might perhaps be able to use to really get that vibe. So I have the Trend Mood swatches pulled up. I'm not gonna guarantee that I can match all of these, but I'm gonna put some concealer down on this arm just so I can get some swatches in. And we're just gonna work together to see what we can come up with. So I'm using the Too Faced Born This Way concealer because I'm trying to finish that up since it is very much like not my style anymore when it comes to concealer, but it does make a pretty good primer for swatches, I would say. Remember when I used to try and use full coverage concealers under my eyes and not wear foundation with it? That was a time I'm not gonna revisit. I would also do this in like a flat lay type of video, but I don't quite know how I would set that up in my new place yet, so we'll just see how this goes. So let's go with this process. Also, I'm hoping that you can't hear my neighbors' music. I really like their music. They just play it really loudly and I don't want to get copyright claimed on this video. I should really invest in an actually good mic or something. That requires money. Anyway, so the first shade is kind of looking like this little like pinky inner corner highlight type shade that I think No Better from the ColourPop X's and O's palette would go quite well with. So I'm just gonna pop that up there, and that will be the first shade that we really go with. Now this one isn't quite as impactful as the swatches on the Trend Mood page, but I also don't know what is photoshopped and what is not in this day and age, so I will make no guarantees. Honestly, it looks like a few of the shades from there could be duped within this palette, so I'm just gonna keep going because the next one is like this deep burgundy matte, and that actually kind of looks like what Reckless does for me here. And the next one is actually like a warm-toned mid-tone matte, which is kind of like that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use those two as well. I don't know, I just really go for a lot of shades like that, and so I have a lot of shades like that in my collection. Oh, that one is a little bit darker than what it kind of looks like in the palette. I'm gonna try Fortunate as well, just to see if that might... Yeah, that one is a little bit lighter, so one of these two shades I think would be a good dupe for what comes in the Pat McGrath palette. And then there's like a kind of mid-tone burgundy-ish type of shimmer, which actually I'm gonna go and see if Easy Go might be a good kind of dupe for that shade. I think that kind of comes close. It's not quite. Again, this isn't meant to be perfect. It's just meant to talk me out of spending $100 on an eyeshadow palette, you know? That one is a little bit more red-toned, but I'm not mad about it. Okay, this shade actually kind of reminds me of Pink Champagne from Anastasia Beverly Hills. Y'all know that I love that shade, so I'm just gonna go in with that from the Self-Made palette. That'll do for me what I want from the Pat McGrath. Kind of like that right there. It's a little bit lighter, but not too terribly much. So, God, I wish it was more double jointed than I am. Next is gonna be hard because we have a hot pink. And I really only own one hot pink shimmer shadow from kind of what I know in my collection. It's from the Anastasia and Alyssa Edwards palette, and that's the shade Beyond. This one might turn out to be a little bit darker than the one in the palette, but honestly it is the only hot pink shimmer that I own. So that is one of the main things that, like, when I look at that palette, I'm like, oh, I could totally get it for that shade. But I'm like, don't buy a palette for one shade. Besides, I've ordered the Huda Beauty Neon Pink Obsessions. I know that there's like now a lawsuit about that, but I'll address that whenever I do that video on that palette when I get it. So that is what, Jesus Christ, bend me. There we go. That's kind of what that's looking like. This is gonna be such an awkward video, honestly. And then next we have kind of a gold shimmer. So I'm gonna look into a few different palettes because there's like one gold that's more of like a warm gold and one that's like a yellow gold. And how many times can I say gold? There's some gold adjacent shades in the ABH and Jackie Aina palette, but that's not quite what I'm going for. But honestly, side note, if you have this palette, credit, and I think Ginger would also do a good job for duping the mattes in the Pat McGrath palette, so side note, that could be really great. I'm also looking in the Nabla Dreamy 2, back to the X's and O's perhaps. Oh, actually 20 something that might be a good stand-in for that shade. It's not perfect, but I'm also not someone who's like heavily needing a whole bunch of gold shades. So I think that, like, it's gold. It's a gold eyeshadow. It can only be so revolutionary, right? Right, that's what I'm saying to keep myself from buying expensive eyeshadow. There we go, looking okay. And then is probably going to be the most difficult shade. It is the Pretty Little like Duo Multi-Chrome in there. Granted, it doesn't show up as well in the swatches, but it's like a pinky gold type situation. And the shade, when I looked at it, I was like, okay, I know I have one shade that would be super, super close to it, and that is Wolfling from the Menagerie Cosmetics Feral palette. And I actually use this as kind of a similar thing when I did my duping the vibes of the, what is it, Norvina Mini 3 palette. Let me just swatch it all the way around my arm. Thank you very much. I think that one is actually pretty close, and I really love the Menagerie Shimmer formula, so I quite like that. And then we have 2 shades left to do. I know exactly what I want for the next one. This is the very, very yellowy gold type shade, and that's gonna come from my Viseart Dark Edit palette. This was also a shade that I was very, very sure about when I was pulling palettes to do this. And it's just like this little bitty gold shade right here. I'm also going to fully recognize I own a lot of eyeshadow palettes. These are palettes I've already owned. I did not buy any of these to dupe the Pat McGrath palette. So I recognize that probably if you're interested in that palette and you don't have a lot of shades like this already, you really should just go ahead and buy the palette, because obviously the sum total of all of these shadows is significantly more than $120, and so while $120 seems like a big investment, if you don't have those shades, it's probably better. But in the meantime, this is what that yellowy, fuck me, I can't swatch. This is what that one is kind of looking like right there. So that one, I think, does a very good job of duping that little gold. And then there's like a lighter gold shimmer, which definitely looks a lot like a couple of the golds from the Nabla Dreamy 2 palette. I'm thinking the shade Libertine would probably do the best job of duping that. So that will be the last shade. There you go. Why didn't I just turn my arm like this? What the heck? Get smarter, Alex. I feel like even though this is definitely very tonally a little bit different than the Pat McGrath palette, I think the Pat McGrath one is definitely a little bit more neutral in comparison to the shadows that I swatched. But I don't think that's an inherently bad thing, because for me and my own personal style, if you've been watching me for any length of time, you know that I really don't wear a whole lot of neutral eyeshadows. So I think perhaps the shades that I pulled out of my own collection that have a similar vibe to them probably would do me better in the long run anyway, because they're not quite as neutral. In conclusion, well, not quite in conclusion, because I'm still going to do some eyeshadow with the shadows that I pulled. If you're more interested in like the deeper rosy shades and some of the lighter golds, you can probably get away with just buying the ColourPop X's and O's palette, or just using that if you have it, and just like bringing in a couple of like bright singles. I know the shade from Menagerie is actually sold as a single, and you can probably get that and like a hot pink one and a gold one, and that should satisfy you if you want to do that, if you like the ColourPop shadow formula. I recognize that the ColourPop shadow formula doesn't work on a lot of people because it can be very chalky on deeper skin tones, and just also the fact that ColourPop doesn't really make a lot of deeper skin friendly eyeshadow. So I recognize that that's very much something that I would advocate for because I like ColourPop shadows, but it doesn't work for everybody. So that is kind of where I'm at when it comes to these shadows. Now, I'm not going to use all of the shades in here to make a look because that would be a lot going on. There's a lot of shades. I can't fit 12 eyeshadows onto my face. But I am going to put these on my face. So let me just get started with some eyeshadow primer, because I do want to put some stuff on my face today. Also, my skin is like looking really good. I've started using hyaluronic acid because I ran out of niacinamide and all of the affordable niacinamide products on Ulta had sold out when I had run out. But I decided to try something new and my skin is looking pretty good because of it. I could almost go no foundation today. I might, honestly, but we'll see. Let me bring my brushes closer to me, please. Just a closer brush to me. Let me zoom y'all in because that would be better for this endeavor. Okay, so I'm gonna go in with one of the two mattes from the ColourPop X's and O's palette. I'm just gonna use the shade Fortunate because that one is a little bit lighter and probably closer to what you can get in the Pat McGrath palette. And that is gonna be my transition shade. Next, I'm going to take a little bit of Reckless, so kind of duping that darker matte shade, and I'm going to use that to really deepen up the eyeshadow. Next, I'm going to cut the crease because I really want to use that kind of duochrome type shade on my lid, and I want to do like a half cut crease type situation. And like I said, I'm going to use that shade Wolfling on my lid. I really like that shadow so much. I think this is one of the... this is so good. This is such a beautiful shadow. Okay, and I'm gonna go back in with more of Reckless to kind of blend out the outer corner. I'm actually gonna use a little bit of more of a precise brush this time because I realized I probably should have done that last time and I didn't because I make bad decisions. And I'm just gonna not take any more product but use that same brush that I used for the shimmer just to blend out the lid a little bit. And then to kind of begin the lower lash line, I'm going to go back in with more of Fortunate here and just kind of begin that as a transition shade along the lower lash line. And I'm only going to blend that about halfway because I do really want to use that hot pink. So now, since I just announced my plans for the inner portion of my lash line, I'm going to use Beyond from the Alyssa Edwards palette to get that hot pink pop in there. And then again, just to deepen up the outer corner, I'm going to just use the darker matte. And finally, for my inner corner highlight, I'm going to use the shade Know Better from the X's and O's palette. That's supposed to be like kind of like the lightest shade that comes in the Pat McGrath. And I recognize I haven't used any of the golds, but that's because I don't care that much about gold eyeshadow. So that's that. Okay, so now I'm just going to do my mascara, the rest of my face. I'm probably not going to wear foundation because I don't feel like this look needs it, and I'm going to be back for the outro. Okay, so this is the finished look. I'm really happy with it. I didn't wear any of like my tinted moisturizer or anything like that today. I just did a very natural kind of rest of my face. I'm even just wearing a clear gloss on my lips. I just feel like no lip color can do this eyeshadow look justice. I really like this eye look. I honestly really just love warm tones on my eyes. I know it's a little bit basic, but I like the way it works like with my eye color, and I feel like with my hair it gives like a nice little contrast, so I always enjoy a good kind of pinky warm look. This isn't any like shade to Pat McGrath or anything like that. I think she's an amazing makeup artist, makes great products. This is just a video for those of us who already have a lot of eyeshadow and aren't quite financially stable enough to have $120 in disposable income to buy a new eyeshadow palette with. Maybe one day, like, that would be my financial goals in my life. Like, I would love to be able to drop $120 for some Pat McGrath, but today is not that day. Now, because all of this just keeps getting up my arm, here's a last look at the swatches. I know I didn't do perfect. I didn't get as close as some of my other Duping the Vibes, but that's okay. I like my version of the Pat McGrath Mothership palette. So let me know if you're thinking of picking this one up or if you're gonna try and dupe it yourself. Just let me know how you're feeling about it down below. I'm thinking I'm gonna do another one of these for the Melt 420 palette very soon because I'm very interested in that one as well. But I also just ordered the Gemini palette for my, like, a little graduation gift to myself, and I'm trying to convince myself that I don't need the Gemini and the 420 palette. Again, Melt is expensive. It's not Pat McGrath expensive, but Melt is expensive. And Melt, like, is constantly duping themselves, and yet I want every single eyeshadow palette from them. So I need to not do that. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below if you want to see more videos from me, and I will see y'all in my next one. I hope you'll have an amazing day. Bye!